here where you can see it's really quite complex how we read that, and that's a really good, clever way of actually bringing the background into the window. Hello everybody, welcome to Great Artist Steel. My name is Ian Ellis and I'm just going to go through the bit of summary about what we've done in the last 3 videos. I'm going to do a little bit more on Nighthawks down there just to make it a little bit more presentable. I've got a few areas to paint, but remember all these are just colour studies, and you can see the 3 I've done. I started off with the hotel by Railroad, and you can see trying to get the colours. I'm not worrying too much about the drawing. This one, perhaps the drawing's worse than whatever, but they can see the colours there I'm trying to get. There was a bit of problem with the colours not quite matching up with some of the images I was showing, but this is the colours I think a bit closer to what I was doing. And again, I'm now on to Nighthawks. This is about 2 years after Gas, 10 years before this one. And what I'm looking at is just how the palette is being created with 2 colour mixing. What you've got is what you can do. You've got the quality colours you get from mixing. You can see all these colours you've got a bigger, richer range of colours than say artists used to have when they used to use the old master palette. I think Hopper started off with the old master palette, and if you look at his work, you can see this. You can see there's a gradual shift moving from the old master palette to a more modern palette. And this is one of his later paintings. You can see it's very quite colourful. What I'm going to do now is just show you go through the advantages of 2 colour mixing. I just move these away. Just go through it a little bit. One is obviously the quality. I've mentioned that before. The quality of the colour you get by just using pairs. So you're not using black, or you're not using complementaries. Remember, if you use complementary colours, what happens is that you can end up with a bit of a matte black in the mix caused by that. So they can destroy the colour. So the idea is trying to get the colours too closest to the colours you got. And what's the big advantages of that? You've got the quality of the colour, and it's a richness to the colour. As you can see, some of these colours are very rich. Another one is selection of colour. When you start putting the paint, when you mix a colour, you can mix lots of other colours with the pair, and you'll find you can actually use those colours in the painting, which I think Hopper has done. Now, before I do that, the final thing is the repeating of a colour is easier. So if you're using 3 colours to do a mix, it's hard to know which proportion. So if you've used 2 colours, you can remember what colour you've actually used. Obviously, that comes into cost as well. Obviously quite a big palette, you're forking out quite a lot of money for a big palette rather than say if you use 3 colours. But what happens is, because you're not wasting any paint and you can get to the colours very quickly, you're saving yourself money. Obviously it's not a factor for some people if we're lucky, but for most of us we've got to worry about the cost. Now I'm just going to show you that how I've done this painting of the Hopper Nighthawks in the last video. So I've got the problem of actually trying to get those colours again, and this is what I'm going to show you how it makes it a bit easier. I'll just move this over to above there, move the palette over here. Let's move this a bit further down. And so I've got to repaint some of these colours. So I've got to remember what colours I use for the blue. And remember, I use the ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow. The 3rd colour would be complicated. What proportion? So all I need to do is get the cadmium yellow out with 2 colour mixing, and then bring in an ultramarine blue. There's a little bit of red in this, you see. So the ultramarine blue, it's got a bit of purple in it. So that's why it goes darker. Just going to do a bit of mixing. Again, tiny bit of ultramarine blue. You get the colour shift. Now, you're getting these lovely yellows, almost like yellow greens. And I'm just actually adding more blue to see what colours I've got up here. And as I keep adding more blue, it gets darker. That's some really dark greens. Now that looks similar to some of the greens we have here. I can use a bit of white if I need to, and go even darker. Ultramarine blue, a bit of yellow, and getting these colours are actually in the side of the top of the diner there, the base of the diner. I'm going to put another layer of colour on there. I put a ground on before, which is a light grey. I said to at the beginning of the last video, I felt it was a little bit too light, but having done the painting, I think I'm quite pleased with the grey I put down. It's ended up looking okay, I think. It's these little tanks over the back here, they'd be quite easy to do because I just put a few darker colours on and the grey came through. Just going to do a bit of painting. Really just darken this up a little bit more and get the edge a bit sharper. And you can see there's quite a bit of grey. I've left quite a bit of grey showing in my rush to do this painting. The painting was quite a big painting actually, so it's quite, what I've got here is quite a quite miniature version of it. But I'm just getting that darkness in there. A bit flatter. You can see when I put more paint on, it starts to lose the brush marks. A bit like painting your walls at home. Put another layer on, it starts looking a bit neater. Oh, this is the colour I didn't mix before. Just looking at that, I see a grey tone. Using the colours he's using burnt sienna quite a lot. So I imagine if you'd use the burnt sienna ultramarine blue, will give you the grey. Just clean my knife. Also, I just scraped a little bit of paint off. I've made a big mess of the top of the wall here, and some of this paint I put on earlier in the earlier video, I just put on a bit heavy, so I've just taken away with a rag, just get it lighter. I do think technically Hopper would actually work with kind of like a semi-glazed, almost quite dry paint. I think quite a lot of the grey colours he's put underneath the painting are actually coming through these paints, so it's quite thin paint. But he uses opaque paint, so he's not a kind of typical glazer, a bit like Cezanne would use a little bit of semi-glaze. But not really focusing much on technique, but it's worth knowing if you want to do a copy of one of these paintings, it's worth knowing the kind of technique he's using. If I was going to do a copy of this painting, it would take me a bit longer than half an hour, I think. Now I'm getting this kind of grey. Not quite sure what grey I've got there. What I can do, just a little movement of the paint, just rub it in, see what you've got. But when you put white with it, it cools it. So the greys here might be quite warm greys going towards a brown. What I've used ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. In the between, should be getting a black. If you move it towards a warm, if you make it too cool, it looks too blue. So it looks to me like it's got a little bit brown with it. So I'm just going to put more white with that, just to see what kind of grey I get. Not too much, because it's quite dark. Tiny bit of... and it looks like, again, he's using the grey to keep it lighter. It's a little bit more brown with it. And then I'm going to put this on with a quite dry paint. Just leaving bits of grey coming through where it's a bit drier. Then it goes over to a bit of a cooler colour again, more ultramarine blue, more with the more of a blue going over that side, more blue. Just a little bit more. You can see that as I'm putting the paint down, I can see it's just a bit too brown. So I'm using a bit of a cooler grey here. Get these cooler greys in there, a little bit more bluish, see? And it looks like it goes over a bit yellow ochreish, so I'm going to use a bit of the yellow ochre with the ultramarine blue. looks a bit more greeny as it moves across. So a little bit of that. So it's getting a nice little shift there in the paint. Again, clean my brush. Not too different to the colours I'm using, so it should be okay. I've just got a slight movement. You don't see too many brush marks in this paint because using quite dry paint. It's a way of actually avoiding the brush marks. A little bit more ochre with that one. This colour's a bit more yellow in there, so I'm bringing that colour in. Take a little bit of paint away to get all these different movements of colour, and then just a little light, darker line of blue, just breaking up the edge of that. And it goes a bit more blue as it goes over to the side of the road. You get this idea of space, colour space, where it gets the blue, everything a bit more bluer as it goes further away. I'm using the, helps create a sense of distance in the road. Then I've got the actual pavement over there, which is a little bit similar to this colour. Remember this colour, easy to mix again, because I've used these two colours. It was cadmium yellow and Prussian blue. So just find my Prussian and the cadmium yellow and quite a bit of white. The white kills it. I mean, white being the neutral colour again. Easy to remember which colour I've used. Looks very strong, but I'm going to use quite a lot of white with that. Kill the colour again with the white. And then dragging on with a clean brush. Some of these colours then. A bit more yellow in some of these colours. And a sharper edge here with the shadow there. The colour looks a little bit more yellow over this. I'll use a different brush. Try and get that edge. A bit yellow with this colour. And try and get the shadow as it runs across there. And a sharper edge there. Breaking it. That's nice. And it moves to almost like a grey-blue. Again, using the yellow and the blue to get that. This goes more grey-blue. You can see that colour. Makes a nice sense of distance again. So you've got the colour moves from a yellow to a kind of more of a grey-blue as it goes around. So really look at these. So obviously you're looking at this print. It's worth getting your own prints and seeing and compare and see the colours I'm looking at. It helps you see what I'm doing. Back to the brighter colour against that. So that the road looks a bit, excuse fingers, just speeding things up. And I'm getting a sense of light there. And some of these colours are a little bit darker. I could use maybe some of these colours I mixed earlier to get some of the darker colours that I'm bringing in there with the blue. And some of the colours are a bit more blue coming. Some lovely little patterns going on here. And using it and getting them with a kind of dry brush. Again, that's darker, a bit lighter, sorry. Too grey, but just bring back the blue. Paint's getting a bit thick. Anyway, getting the patterns in there. Maybe just take away some of these areas in here as well. I mean, there's repaint some of these. You've got this dark area hitting the orange of the wall. Remember what was doing that? How did I get that? That was the cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson. Just pairs again. Cleaning my knife, make it nice and clean colour, and just using the red together. Oh, made a mistake. It's more of a yellow ochre. You can see it's a bit more of a ochre with the alizarin crimson. It looks a bit too strong, so that's it. And bring that up with another clean brush. Right up against the edge of that, just to get over this side. It's a bit darker again. A bit more. Just take out some of these grey areas so you can see the colours. So you leave these white areas like this, you don't really see the colours. So still not done the back pathway, that needs to go as well. Just smartening up the colours. There's also a lovely grey brown on the on that. Now that could be just using the same colours I've used down here to link up. With, again, burnt sienna with ultramarine blue will give you the grey brown. So burnt sienna, ultramarine blue again, bit of white with it. That's it. It's lovely, got a grey brown there. That'll take out those colours here. So again, there's a link between the paintings, between these colours here and those colours there. Try get the pathway painted at the back. Looks a bit more, take away this grey. You start seeing colours really coming out and starting to get rid of this grey. Get this window painted. Remember, the window is just simply ultramarine blue and yellow again. And I'll go back and get my brush. Ultramarine blue, I've got, let's get some more of it. For the window within that, so there's again very dark green, a bit more blue with it. In fact, there's a bit more blue with all those blues I put in there. There's a bit more blue in there, less yellow, and then more green for the window shutter there. This is going this kind of green again, just using more yellow. You get a different colour. Going back to circular mixing, what I'm doing, really there, you've got the cadmium yellow there. If I just take this away, when I'm mixing the cadmium yellow with ultramarine blue, this is the ultramarine blue, and I'm mixing all these colours, but shades of them. So what I'm doing is getting different colours. So I'm actually, by using those two colours, I'm just using different colours, and he's using them in the same painting. It looks like he's using them. He might have done it a different way. We don't know. There's been no evidence out to show this, but it's just the coincidences I'm getting by looking at these paintings are quite amazing, I think. I'm getting them quite quickly and quite easily, just to take away the edges, so the colours start working better. You start seeing how the colours, you can see it when you start tidying it up. There's also a black around the back here, which is very important to help take out this white. All down here as well, I need to take all this out. There's a lot of work. Trying to speed it up best I can. And the wall at the back is darker. Now, the burnt sienna with the... so just clean this, all right. It's a dark burnt sienna. We're using that, we're using the emerald green. And the burnt sienna give you that lovely brown, red. So if you use burnt sienna, keep picking up. Yeah, it's get some there, that'll do. So it goes a bit more darker red. Bring that in. Bit more vermilion, emerald green with that to darken it. And it's a similar colour to the top of the bar there, so the bar itself, maybe not quite so much vermilion with it. The emerald green. The emerald green is really destroying the red quite quickly, so I've got a few more red in there. Just 2 colours again. I'm getting a colour shift. This is this brown and the colour at the top of the bar slightly brighter, I think. So I'm using more red with the emerald green. Let's get that bar, top of the bar colour. That's it. And that's a bit more white with it, just a bit white, just to lighten it a bit. Then going for the dark colour underneath the bar there, we're using the burnt sienna and the emerald green. Get the dark brown. That's nice, it just goes in there. And the colour in between the two brings out the colour in the bar there. Very subtle. Not much difference between the 2 colours. And then there's a really dark colour, just going to use a little bit more of the black to darken that a bit, to get the dark colour against the edge of the green there. That helps bring the green out. Is that the green looks a little bit more intense against that going, really brings the green out, so you get that lovely colour. And it goes across that cleaner yellow down there. Just bring that. So you get the green starts to come out nicely against that dark colour. Get more of the, mix the yellow again. Remembering how I mixed the yellow was mixed with the alizarin crimson. And the cadmium yellow. This looks a little bit slightly more green than that, so I'm just looking a tiny bit of the, with the yellow there. And you can see, I mean, it's really difficult to mix the colours. You've got to be so careful. You can see I'm over mixing. Yellow is very, very, very weak, and I've just got to make sure just tiny bit of that with the yellow, bit of white, and I can bring in that yellow down in a super clean brush needed. Get the yellow in just down here, bring that yellow out. It's a nice bit of colour. There's a bit more of a yellow-green up top of there, kind of that colour there. Again, how much I use the emerald green and the yellow. Bring this colour out at the top there. Yep. Which I've missed a little bit. Sets all those greens off again. These bits of colour are so important. Also, I've not really worked on the top of his top yet. I'm just going to look at that, just bring him out a little bit more before I just leave this alone. Remember, also this black line there would work well. It helped to get the green to come out. I can bring that in, but a lot of work to be done. I mean, this is something I need to do on a big scale. If we've got to get all the detail of the face there, this miniature painting, it's very difficult to get that colour. But I've got a bit of white just catching the top of his top there. I just bring that in. I think that should be enough. Just to show you the colours. Some of these paints are a little bit thick as well. What you can do, when you put a paint a bit heavy, you can just flick it flick the paint away. Bit naughty doing this. I wonder how much he's used his brush to do that, just flicking the paint on. Now just looking at the white of his top, a little bit of just a little bit warmth in there in the white, and just bring it on just to bring him out a little bit more. And the top of his hat is actually lightened, and makes a difference. Some of these kips I've lost, just bring those back. Some of the dark blue at the back. The blue at the back looks a little bit like it's got a bit of tint in it, looking a bit closer. And also you can see a little bit in the painting, I think there is a little hint of these windows going around the back there. But if I saw the actual image, I'm sure they'd be much clearer. But I'm working from a print, it's a problem working from a print. But if I just do a little bit work around those dark areas there, working with the ultramarine blue again. These little cups there, I'm redrawing him a little bit. A bit of light catching the side of his jacket. And what else could I do? A little bit more of the light blue on his shirt over here. You can just see a little bit of light with his shirt. Makes a difference. And also his darker bit around the back of him. Make his head a bit smaller. And his hat as well. It's got make his hat a bit smaller. And he's got a dark bit running through his hat that helps link him up to the background. Anyway, I think that'll do. I mean, just this bit here, it's a very important bit there. I've got this dark green coming in to the painting, which is very important. We've got this little area here where you can see it's really quite complex how we read that, and that's a really good, clever way of actually bringing the background into the window, where it's got these kind of patterns going across each other. I just finish that bit, finish off. You've got that got a tiny bit of grey blue going up on the window there. Then it's very dark against it, a dark green. I'll bring that out. And then as it drops down, that's all darker against that. And then there's this bit of blue, green blue, dropping down here. Get that movement across there. That's nice, that's a bit of colour, that's just sort of thing, just enough to do that. And that's a bit too green there, a bit more blue with this colour. And then it drops down, and get that, and just try and get that dark green at the back. So just rushing a bit, conscious of your time. Dark blue, green, just that very dark against that, just helps bring this colour out. A little bit more up here, take away there's a little bit of light yellow coming across there. Now I need a super clean brush to do that. Lots of white, lots of yellow, just coming across there, that's it. There's a little bit more yellow in there. More white with it. Over the darker bit of the wall. Anyway, and getting carried away. I think that's enough. Can't stop, but and I'm making. I think that's enough for a killer city. I mean, if I did this painting, I think I've got quite a lot of those killers there. If I did a copy of it, I think I'd get quite, very close. Obviously, the type of colours he's using, the make of colour, the quality of his paints he's using, I don't know. My paints I'm using are quite cheap paints. They're kind of student standard oil paints, just because to keep it cheaper for you, really. But you can do quite a lot with some. I mean, the pigments, the quality of a paint and cheaper pigments is is fine. The only problem is it's the thickness of the paint. The amount of paint you get with it can be a problem. Anyway, just put a bit of tape on that. Take the tape off, makes it a little bit more professional. Always do this when you're doing a painting. Always make sure you put a bit of tape around it and have a look. And it's okay. I'm quite pleased with that. Just a little colour study. It's a bit looser than, much looser than Hoppers. But hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again another time. So please don't forget to subscribe if not. Remember, you don't have to pay for this. It's just so we can keep letting you know exactly when a new video comes out. So the next painter we're going to be looking at is Monet. So I'll get back to you soon. Bye.